Welcome to episode 99 of the Photo Op Podcast. I'm Ben Lucas.
And I'm Stuart Marlantis.
And this is Photo Op, the photo opinion podcast where we talk about all things photo and video. Next week, a very special episode 100. I'm very excited for that. But today, what are we doing today?
Today, we're answering one question, which is, how do you afford the latest gear?
That's the neat thing. You don't.
To expand a little bit, this question comes from Logan. And Logan asks, just curious as to how you guys manage to afford to buy the latest cameras and lenses, given that some of them are super expensive. Do you save for a few months? Do you take up side projects and make money to upgrade your gear? Or do you just buy them from the savings you already have?
Ooh, fantastic question. Thank you, Logan. So let's actually start just by kind of caveating this for all of you guys listening at home. Depending on your own situation, one of us is going to be much more useful to you.
Yes.
So I am a professional photographer, and by that I mean, you could be professional without being full-time, but I am a full-time photographer. I make all of my money from this thing, camera. So If you don't have a day job and this is your business, how I think about it is probably going to be a lot more applicable. If
For sure.
Stuart, on the other hand,
I have a day job. Yay.
he does, which you get paid pretty decently,
Yeah.
much more than me. So in one respect, your day job is not paying for your photography, but in the other respect, it is paying for photography. Like,
Yeah. I mean, it certainly operates as it softens the blow, so to speak.
Yes.
It is a backup.
So you have a literal you have a little more kind of lateral moving to be able to purchase more expensive gear, I would say. But that said, it's still like, hey, I'm not making ROI from this, so can I really justify it? So there's kind of two different frames of thought. So kind of before we get into that episode, like one of our pieces of advice just might be more useful to you. So just kind of keep that in mind. But yeah, how do you manage to budget stuff?
That's increasingly difficult these days. It used to be a lot easier. I was renting for a very low rate, and I got to have a lot of fun money. But now I have recently purchased a house, and the budget is substantially tighter. So now I do actually have to think more about my expenditures. That being said, it varies is the answer. It varies.
That is the most useful thing that has ever been said.
Actually, in front of us, here's a great immediate answer. This is not photo or video gear, but it is audio gear. What you're looking at, what you're hearing through in this podcast, this deck, these microphones, I have not received a return on this investment at this point. Thanks to you who are subscribed to the Patreon, by the way.
If you would like to help kind of pay off all of this fancy stuff that Stuart, I have not paid a dime on this. This has all been Stuart funding my podcast. So thank you, Stuart. If you would like to help pay Stuart back, go to our Patreon, patreon.com/nomcreative. That is my personal one. But there's a tip jar for my YouTube channel and then a tip jar for the podcast. And the podcast goes back to paying web hosting fees and a little bit for microphones and keeping the electricity on.
Yeah.
So go subscribe. Thank you so much. Once we kind of get more people and a bigger subscriber base, I will start adding more tiers. Right now it's just a tip jar. So $1 every little bit helps.
Yeah, but this is a great example of that. This obviously is for the podcast and is kind of long-term, looking at the very long-term with this equipment. Audio equipment doesn't go bad, so to speak, very quickly.
Sure.
Often never, depending on the specifics of what you're working with. So this is useful not only for the podcast, not only is it going to last a long time and be useful a long time, but I also use it every day for just like a ultra flex on my coworkers working remote.
When you're doing Zoom meetings.
So yes, when I'm doing Zoom meetings, I literally run all of my audio through this, which is amusing, if totally unnecessary. But it's a purchase that covers lots of things, and it's a purchase that's looking very long term. And so I'm more okay spending that money up front and not getting an immediate return on it because I am betting on that return being in the long term.
You
right
do
away.
Actually make a really good point where you bought something that is multi-purpose. purpose. Like if you buy something that is single purpose, I am used to not having a lot of real estate. So all of my storage, I min-max to the max because storage space is at a premium. So if something isn't multi-purpose, not only is it a waste of money, but for me, it's a waste of space. So that's also like, I do have a few single purpose things, but that single purpose thing is a million times better than any other thing for the job. And I get enough use out of it.
Like I use this every day, not just for the podcast. So it's easier for me to justify that. If I was spending the equivalent amount of money that this costs on something that I'm using once a month or twice a month, then it becomes a lot less interesting.
For sure. Yeah. Absolutely. So for me, if you stop listening to this podcast right now, listen to this one thing. ROI, baby.
Yep.
Return on investment. Okay, please keep listening. We do have more tips for you, but that is the king of everything.
Oh yeah.
If you're so as a full-time photographer, if I'm not gonna get a return on a thing, why am I doing the thing? Like the probe lens, I have wanted it so badly for the longest time. # not sponsored, but Lawa, hit us up. I've wanted it for the longest time. And when I bought it, I knew that like there's not necessarily going to be an immediate return. But when I bought it and started using it and playing with it, I've actually landed 2 jobs now from footage that I've shot from the probe lens just because it is so interesting and unique and other people can't do it.
Yep.
So there is a return on that. So not everything I do necessarily has a return, even if I think it does. Like I still have something about Black Friday 3 years ago that I haven't opened yet because I haven't had the time to like play and have time to myself. But you know, that's a different problem.
Well, and I also look at return on investment in the scale of like how much like this, you know, this is not being used or this is not being paid for right now. Again, thank you to those that are subscribed to the Patreon. Obviously, we're not running ads if you're listening to this. So, but if you look at this as how much good media we've produced out of this for the amount that was spent on it, like we're probably approaching the point where per episode, this is costing, I don't know, $5 or $6. Which I feel like is pretty good.
And it will keep going down the more we make.
Exactly,
yeah.
and it'll keep going down the more we make. So long term, we can look at this and be like, oh wow, look at this. It only costs us like $1 an episode. Whereas if we weren't serious about this podcast and we only recorded a couple episodes, that would feel a lot more painful.
We have had a decent break just because life is busy and I'm exhausted. But no, we do have a bunch more in the pipeline. So there is plenty more coming.
So I look at it that way too. Like how much maybe there isn't a specific job for a piece of equipment that's going to like pay off that equipment. That would be ideal. But if you're using that piece of equipment consistently enough for all sorts of different jobs, even if it's not explicitly for that piece of equipment, then long term that can start to make sense by giving you a capability that you otherwise didn't have.
Absolutely. So another thing to think about is so you talked about buying gear for like not just the specific job when you need it, but also buying stuff that's multi-purpose.
Yep.
But something else to think about, at least for me, is you get a paycheck.
I do.
And on a regular basis, next week, next month, whatever it is, you're going to have more money in your account that will get replenished, and then you'll have a little more to kind of do that with.
Yep.
I don't. So back when I was writing for Tuts Plus, I actually remember that I wrote an article where for 3 months in a row, I literally did not make a single penny. And what the problem was is in January, I spent the entirety of January doing wedding shows. And so I was talking to people and I spent the entirety of February doing client meetings. And then like I basically didn't get paid January, February. And then like in March, I started getting like people actually booking me and paying all the deposits for all their weddings. And I made like $17,000. So it's like nothing, boom, payday. Yeah. So for me, I have to think annually. I can't think paycheck to paycheck because there's a lot of there's some advertising I pay monthly for, but there's a lot of things that like I only pay for this once a year. Like my client subscription software, not subscription software, gallery software, I pay a subscription for, like any of that stuff. I just pay annually because instead of paying monthly, like they give me a 20% discount or whatever.
Might as well.
And I might as well.
Yeah.
So it's chunks like that of like every year I'm going to buy this one thing. I have to add all that up and I have to budget that way rather than paycheck to paycheck. So I think in 12-month chunks instead of 1-month chunks.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if you're full time and this is your business, you just kind of have to reframe your brain and realize this month might be bad, but next month it's going to get better.
Yeah, which is totally different for me. I mean, having a day job and having a paycheck that comes in every month, my thought process is month to month. Not that I'm like trying to be paycheck to paycheck. That's not a good place to be. But if you look at your paycheck and you say, all right, this amount comes out immediately to pay for the house, this amount comes out every month for utilities, this amount comes out for, savings or whatever, then whatever you have left over each month is what you've got.
Take part of what you've got left over and set that aside and be like, well, once that gets enough that I can buy the new camera, then you can.
Exactly.
So when you have a paycheck, you can do that. When you're doing it annually, you just have to, it's the same principle. You just have to reframe your thinking.
Yep. Longer term.
So something else that I want to talk about is when you're a business owner, you should have a business account. If you are getting money for your photography, one, make sure that you have a business license and that you can legally operate wherever you are.
Yes.
Two, make sure you have a business account. Because depending on the laws on where you live, it might be different if someone pays you as a business versus if someone pays you like a day job type thing.
Yeah.
So, but three, set up multiple accounts. So for instance, I have one account that I just call income and expenses. So, Stuart, when you buy a print from me, you give me some money, it goes into that income and expenses account. And then just because I'm hella lazy, when I go to buy that print for you, I pay for it from the income and expenses account. But the first thing I do is I take the sales tax that I collected from you and I have a separate account that's just called sales tax. So I will take that money and put it into the sales tax account. So that way at the end of the year, I don't go, oh no, and get surprised with all the sales tax. Like I've been saving it all year and that account just does not exist to me. Like I never look at it. I never wonder how much money's in it because I'm never going to pull from it. Like that's the government's money.
This bites people so often. I have read quite a few stories of people that are like generally in web media in a variety of forums and they don't think about that. They don't save taxes. They don't have everything set up legitimately with their business. And then they get slammed by the IRS.
So some people pay monthly, some people pay quarterly.
Yeah.
My business structure for whatever reason is set up on an annual scale. So in January, I send the government thousands of dollars in just sales tax I've collected over the past 12 months.
Yep.
So that's just, and I have to make sure that I have that because I'm still on the hook for it. So set up a separate account for that. And then also I set up a separate account that I just take 10% of everything and put that into. I know some people do that for like tithing or charity. Some people do that for just like their day-to-day savings. That is my like, I need to make sure I get paid. So if you are running, I worked a very long time without paying myself and every cent went back into the business and I was burning out like hardcore. And when you go months and months and months working your butt off and then you still have not been able to write yourself a paycheck to like pay the rent, like, man, it bums you out. It bums you out real fast.
Not terribly inspiring.
It is not. I'm like, why am I even... There have been multiple... So I've been doing this for like 12 years now. There have been multiple times where I just wanted to like sell my camera and quit being a photographer and like get a day job. Like, I'm like, why am I even doing this? And it was because I wasn't paying myself first. And if you don't do that, you're going to burn out. Yep. So make sure you do that or you're going to have a real bad time.
Yeah, and I think that's totally natural. Like, I think a lot of people feel that way. I am somebody that just like, I couldn't have that uncertainty, so I got a day job. I'm not strong enough to do that, but respect to those that are, because I'm sure there's a lot of questioning that goes on, and that's okay. I feel like that's totally natural.
I think you also have maybe more fun doing photography than me, because when you're doing photography and you pick up your cameras because you want to. Yeah,
that's true. Even when I freelanced like a lot, it was very much on my terms, which I appreciated. Like the nice thing the day job gives you is a way out. You can just say no to anybody and it's not going to hurt you. So.
There are definitely jobs that I've looked at and go, oh, I don't want. Yes, please. Yeah. Please pay me money.
That being said, I'm not encouraging everybody switch to the day job model, because the downside to that is, oh boy, you spend a lot of energy and time at your day job, and then if you want to do something fun for yourself in the evenings and weekends, you're like, but I really don't want to work more.
Yeah. So I have another friend who works in tech. He makes like 10 times as much money as I do. He's doing really good for himself. But I'm a lot happier than he is, because he works like 60 to 80 hours a week. And he's like, yeah, my job sucks, but like it pays me well. And I'm like, well, my job's awesome. I'm broke, but my job's awesome. So, that's a
different ways
of
looking at it.
Anyway, let's try and get back to how do you afford the latest gear? Let's talk about budgeting, how we kind of save and be able to buy stuff. So that's the neat thing. You don't.
Exactly. You don't.
And what we mean by that is don't buy the latest gear.
No. It is, especially now, there are very few like humongous leaps in equipment anymore that is like, oh, I have to buy the latest thing because it's the only thing that has these capabilities. We are seeing I feel like an incremental shifts now. Occasionally something kind of cool comes out, but for the most part, very incremental shifts. There's almost nothing that current year camera can do that current year -1 camera cannot do. Yeah.
So
I mean, we're shooting this on a camera that's probably 5 years old now.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that. Shoots 4K great.
And I bought it like 2 years ago.
Yeah.
So
and it shoots 4K great. It's awesome. Nothing wrong with that.
So I am. Last week we did a questions and answers episode, and one of the questions was, I have a 5DS and I hate it. It's bad. You know what? I hate you. Please never write in again. I'm kidding. I love you. Write in as many questions as you want. But I'm holding in my hands my 5DS. And guess what? I bought this when it was being discontinued, and I got it for $1,000.
And what were they new? Like 4,000? Yeah, I was going to say.
So it's a 75% discount for a brand new camera. I didn't buy a used camera. It is new. It had 0 shutter clicks on it before it got to me, but it is several years old. But guess what? It's still an amazing camera for basically what it is. Again, it's like, what's the difference between a drill and an impact driver? Like, you got to know why.
What are you using it for?
To my wife, they're like, they both do the screw turny thing. Like, why it doesn't matter. And I'm like, no. They're different. The same way that a 5D3 and a 5DS, they look identical.
Yes.
Their outside body case is identical. Their buttons are identical. Everything is nearly identical. But there's like some very small tweaks that make them very, very different.
So there's no reason to buy the current stuff. You only will do that if you have more money than you know what to do with, or you know that you need it for some particular reason.
Oh, yeah. So that actually brings us into our next one. This is a phrase entrepreneurs like, MVP, minimum viable product. So in the entrepreneur world, it's what's the like lowest effort or minimum thing you can get away with selling. So you don't like, no, we need to full feature it before we release. No, you need to release and get out in the world. Yep. Well, what we mean by minimum viable product is what is like the worst or cheapest or oldest gear you can get away with using that still gets the job done to your standards.
Yep. I was going to say, the phrase is, does it get the job done? Right?
Yeah.
If the answer is yes, then it doesn't matter how old it is.
So I've mentioned this quite a few times, but my very first camera was a Canon Rebel XSI. It capped out at ISO 1600, but that looks terrible. I tried to never put it above ISO 800. It shot 3 frames per second, 12 megapixel sensor. I thought it was amazing. But guess what? I tried shooting a wedding with it, and I was struggle bussing. I had a really hard time shooting in an indoor stained glass window chapel with like no lights except, and oh no, I was like I bought a 2.8 lens, and even with that I was underexposing by like 3 or 4 stops and trying to boost it in Photoshop, and the grain was awful and they were still slightly blurry, and it was pain. If you're a professional photographer, I would say that's not a minimum viable product.
No.
Did I get the job done? Yes, but I would say that doesn't get the job done.
But even that, the landscape has changed so much. Like, great ISO performance is now 5 years plus available.
Oh, yeah,
like, you can still buy stuff a couple years old and get great performance.
That was 12 years ago.
Yeah. Landscape is very different now.
So yeah, and 12 years ago, I made the incremental leap from that XSI to a 5D3. And guess what? 10 years later, I am still using 5D3. In fact, every time when it got discontinued, I bought more of them. So now I've got a fleet of identical cameras that are all amazing and fantastic.
Yep. Yeah, the only time that I've bought current model was when I bought the A7 III. And that was moving from previous. I had the A77, which was the Minolta tech one that Sony had, and that was old one, or that was I bought it new, but it had been discontinued. So similar.
It was old tech.
It was old tech by the time I bought it. I didn't have a lot of money. I was in college. I just wanted something, and I kind of liked the idea of this transflective lens or transflective mirror thing. Turned out to be a dead end. It was fun. It had a great it could just crank out the photos. I think at the time, this was quite a while ago, and you could do like a 20 FPS burst, which like nothing else can do. That was really fun.
Sports cameras were only at 14.
Yeah,
so
it was
insane.
It was insanely cool. That being said, the performance was kind of bad for other reasons. So I saved up money over literally years and years. Again, college, I didn't have a lot of money, and I made the bet that Sony's E-mount cameras were going to be supported and good for a long time, and they had done some really interesting things with the A7 I, the A7 II, and I was just kind of waiting for better 4K video performance, and the A7 III came out and it kind of did everything great, and I leaped on that new. That's the only time that I've bought something brand new. Now there's the A7 IV out, and a bunch of the A line has exploded into all sorts of different models, and I haven't bought any of that because it does a good job. It does everything that it needed to do, and if I really wanted to upgrade, it would be totally redundant. It would be like incremental changes at this point.
Indeed.
So like when I needed a little video camera, I saw that you had a great time with the G85.
Yeah.
I found one. Mine was actually used. Somebody had used it, and I bought it, and it's great.
So you can look this up. I got mine on a pretty good deal. I got my Lumix G85 for $500.
Nice.
And I was thinking I would rather, when I'm filming dumb stuff like this for my YouTube channel, I'd rather burn out a $500 sensor than a $4,000 sensor.
For sure. Yeah.
Plus it is half the weight of my other cameras, so I can hold it when I'm doing, other YouTube vlogging stuff. It's got the flip out screen. It's got 4K capture. I'm like, oh, this does a ton of stuff really well. Of like, it's never going to be my main camera, but like I took it to India with me and I did a great job.
Yeah, like low light performance isn't great, but
But it's
whatever. It's good enough. It's good enough.
Yeah. My $500 camera of like, I went into like these cathedrals and like it did pretty good.
Well, and that's what I recommend for people more on the video side or on the streaming side, because it's something I've increasingly kind of helped people with, is setting up streams. And there's a bigger and bigger push into multi-camera streams, which is really fun. But the downside of that is you need to have a bunch of cameras.
Yeah.
And so people think like, oh man, this is going to cost like, at least $6,000, potentially like $10,000, $20,000 to get a bunch of DSLRs and put them around. And I'm like, no, just buy a bunch of G7s or G85s or whatever equivalent, few years old Lumix is, and use those. You're already going to have lighting if you've got a stream set up. Just buy cheaper $500 cameras, especially after it's been compressed online. No one is going to tell the difference.
Literally no one.
So they're great for that. So instead, you can spend... well, heck, now you could probably get 3 used G85s for just about $1,000, maybe slightly more. So it works. It works.
Yeah.
No reason to buy brand new.
So, think about the MVP, the minimum viable product. What is the cheapest thing you can do that gets the job done? That is the type of thing you should buy.
Yep.
Another caveat, though. I love caveats. Word of the day brought to you by the letter C for caveat. Okay, but when it is something that is more of a lifetime purchase, go with the Terry Pratchett's boots model, which if you are not familiar, I'm not going to explain it. Just go Google it. People have explained it better, and I don't want to waste the time on air.
Here's a one sentence. If you buy good boots, they will last longer and you'll end up saving money than if you buy bad boots multiple times.
That's the one. But so some items that are lifetime lenses, as long as you don't freaking drop the thing, a lens will last you forever. Like, so your dad was a photographer.
Yes.
And you've got some legendary Nikkor lenses.
I do.
And how old are those?
Oh, some of them are like decades and decades and decades old. Like some were old when he got them. Like they're still, the great thing about mirrorless nowadays, they're easy to adapt. So they're still great lenses.
And we're what are we talking, like 70s for some of these?
Yeah, for sure.
So 50 years later, they're still like better than the piece of glass I've got sitting in front of me.
The laws of physics don't change. Like a good lens is a good lens.
Indeed.
Yeah.
So again, really like buy something nice and take care of it if it's one of those lifetime purchases. I do not consider a camera body a lifetime purchase. It has anything with an expiration date or a use or a wear and tear.
Camera bodies are consumables, as weird as that is to say out loud.
It is weird to say that
very painful, expensive consumables.
They're very painful, expensive consumables, and you think like, wow, I want to be using this forever. But like, no, the electronics will go. Like my computer, technically it's a consumable of like, because I can't really upgrade my laptop here. Like I can upgrade my PC. That's more ship of Theseus type thing. But like your graphics card, like, is going to die one day and you're going to need a new graphics card. Like that's just life. Your camera body is going to die one day. Your lens, take care of it. Treat it like a precious baby. It will last you forever. Until you get FOMO and you see one that's, twice the cost and half the weight. And you're like,
even then, I haven't bought name brand lenses. Like I have a couple.
I've got a Sigma.
I have a couple fantastic 2.8 zooms for my Sony, and they're both Tamrons, and they're way less expensive than the Sonys, and the performance is nearly identical, and in some cases better, depending on the lens that you buy from them. So,
indeed,
yeah, you don't need to spend name brand money.
Here's a hot tip for all of you out there. I don't know which way the Sony ring goes, but if you shoot Canon or Nikon, if you shoot Canon, buy Sigma lenses, because Canon and Sigma lenses spin the same direction for focus and zoom length. If you shoot Nikon, buy Tamron, because Nikon and Tamron lenses spin the same direction, so your muscle memory is always the same. I had one Tamron lens in my lineup, and it always threw me off when I put it on my camera because everything spun the opposite direction as my Sigma and my Canon lenses. So I use it kind of until it got burned out, and then I replaced it with a Sigma one because just I need that muscle memory for me. That's just another little hot tip. I think I've done that one on the channel before, but it's a good
hot tip.
One, so
again.
I'm bringing it back. Recently, I actually had to replace my speedlights.
Yes.
So here's another hot tip. If you think you need a thing, sit on it and decide if you actually still need it. Because there are some things I'm like, ooh, that's interesting, I need it, and then I completely forgot I was thinking about it.
Yep. And this is for more than just camera gear too. This is like a widely applicable
that just applies to your life.
There's been so much stuff, and this is how marketing tries to get you. Like there's this kind of FOMO thing that people try to develop in you, so that you think, oh, I have to get this thing now, because if I don't, then I'll regret it later. Sit on it for like a day, and oftentimes you're like, I don't actually need that thing.
Yeah. So when it came to like Lauer Pro Blends, # not sponsored. Oh God, please contact us. Anyway, I sat on that for 2 years before I purchased it, and I still wanted it as badly on day like 700 as I wanted it on day 1. And so yes, absolutely buy it.
And I love a sale, but just because something is on sale doesn't mean you should buy it. You're still spending money.
Indeed.
Like you could just not spend that money, and then you would save even
more
more money than the discount that it's on. So
recently I did. So I've had speedlights. The speedlights that I'm currently using, Yongnuo 660s. I did a review on the channel for those. But the problem that I've had with those is they lack second curtain sync, which doesn't sound like a big deal, but there's one very specific shot I love taking at weddings at the end of the night that requires second curtain sync. And in fact, sometimes I will bring my really like 12-year-old really bad Canon speedlight with me just so I can get that one shot. And I'm like, I'm very tired of lugging an extra piece of gear to take one photo at the end of the night. Let's replace them with something new and better that can do what I want.
Yeah. And now,
so I have sat on that pretty much this summer. The Impetuous came when we had our last heat wave this year. But they started kind of burning out and overheating. I'm like, all right, I need to replace these things. So I bought new speedlights. Well, when I was going to buy new speedlights, what do I do with my old speedlights? I don't need two incompatible Wi-Fi triggered speedlights.
Nope.
Sell your old stuff.
Yeah, I'm somebody that doesn't sell a lot of old stuff, but I have sold old stuff consistently if truly the thing that I'm buying has fully replaced it in functionality. Like, I like having spares, I like having backups, but there's a level of, like, in this case, this is a great example. You're not going to use two separate non-compatible systems. You might as well just buy all in on one.
I now own 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 speedlights in addition to about 15 studio strobes. I'd say I think I have enough.
Yep.
Probably.
Well, and now that you have Godoc's speedlights, you'll start, like, replacing everything with Godoc stuff as time goes on.
Possibly, maybe. I haven't shot with them yet. We'll see. We'll see how far the bug itch takes me.
Yeah, their studio strobes are supposed to be pretty good.
Yeah, so I think we've covered a decent amount of stuff today. Well, let's recap all of our hot tips. So, all about ROI. Make sure that, like, don't buy something if you don't think you're going to get your money back, especially if this is business for you.
Oh yeah, if it's a business, then, like, straight up do not. If it's like in my case where I've got a day job backing things up, then make sure that you at least are going to get enough use out of it that it's worth your time and money.
So for me, it's will I make my money back, or will this bring in more money? Or another way to think about it is, will this get me a client that I am turning away right now because I can't do that?
For sure.
So there are definitely some things where I'm like, oh, I will buy the thing and this will get me new clients. That is never true. Buying a thing will never get you new clients unless you are currently turning away those clients already. But I took a chance on the Lauer Probe lens, and I started pushing the work that I was making with it, and I was able to attract clients. But that was, like, a lot of, like, very conscious effort on my part.
And after, like, 12 years of experience doing this. So, like, if you're starting out, don't buy something and assume you're going to get jobs out of it.
This is not Field of Dreams. If you buy it, they will not come. Let's see. Creating multiple accounts for budgeting.
Yep.
Make sure you set aside for profit and sales tax.
Check out your local laws. Figure out what business you should register as. Figure out your taxes. Do not wait. The IRS will come after you.
Pay yourself first so you don't burn out. Make sure that you can continue to do photography, whether it's your job or your hobby. Buy a generation back. Minimum viable product.
Yep.
We've gone over a bunch of great stuff today, but one more that I haven't mentioned.
One last tip.
One last one. We're going to start that out of next week's listener question is going to come from Ben. And Ben asks, what's the difference between overhead and scaling costs? Dun, dun, dun.
Stay tuned.
We're gonna explain that next week in our very special episode 100, along with, that's going to be kind of the bonus content listener question. Yeah. So that's our episode for today. Thank you guys so much for listening. Logan, thanks so much for the question. That was a great one. If you guys have questions, you can email us. What's the email, Stuart?
It is hello@photo-op.show.
Fantastic. Be sure to go check out our Patreon, become a member, give us $1 in the tip jar.
Give us some ROI.
Give us some ROI, baby.
You can't see this if you're listening, but I'm gesturing at the broadcaster.
If you find this entertaining or informative or educational, $1 is really cheap. So just, help us out. That's like $12 a year. And all of it goes, none of it really goes to our pockets. All of it just goes to making sure that we can produce more content.
Yep.
So thank you guys so much. We will come back next week with a very special episode, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks for joining us.
If you have questions or ideas for future episodes, you can email us at hello@photo-op.show.
Watch us on Ben's YouTube channel at NomCreative.
As in Om Nom Nom.
Share this with a friend, and you can listen to Photo Op anywhere podcasts are sold.
Or download it. 'Cause it's free.